Hello and welcome back to the presentation on ecological validity. So, basically, I'm going to talk a little bit more about ecological validity before stepping through the levels. So, basically, ecological validity is defined by Bronfenbrenner, who came up with those concentric circles that are the basis of the very colorful version that I've created. He also coined the term ecological validity and states that it's the extent to which the environment experienced by the subjects in a scientific investigation has the properties it's supposed to or assumed to have by the investigator. So really, when you're doing any kind of research, and he was mostly looking at lab research on child development, and what he was trying to say was that the more artificial that is, the less ecologically valid it is, and in a way the less meaningful it is as research, and the less you can really trust the results. So the more any kind of scientific investigation is like the actual environment that it's trying to study, the more likely it is to be real, valid, and in particular ecologically valid. And over time, what this has grown to mean is that you can also, when looking at things in a naturalistic setting, when you actually go out and view things, that this comes down to the way that you carry yourself, the way that you influence the situation, the way that you look at it, that all of those things will have an impact on how realistic any kind of research results are that you get out of it. So, ecological validity is the extent to which researchers and interventionists think like an ecosystem. So taking it back to the previous description, really, it's, the ecological validity would have been, of that intervention would have been so much higher if someone would have actually gone to these villages and tried to understand what was going on and watched as things unfolded, and that didn't happen. So now we can look at an expanded definition, and this is my own definition of ecological validity based on Urie Bronfenbrenner's, and I've given it a temporal dimension that you have input, process, and impact, which I brought up a little bit earlier. So ecological validity is the extent to which the researcher or actor assesses the relevant environmental elements and processes affecting the phenomena and our participants' focus. So these are the antecedents. When you're looking at a situation, these are all of the relevant environmental elements. These are all of the processes, actors, etc. that have created the situation historically and are kind of impinging on it currently. Then the next part is the network of power across the ecological topography of the research/intervention environment and the extent to which the researcher or actor assesses their own power and position. So this is what networks of power are going on right now that are affecting the phenomena of interest. What's happening at this very moment, what's keeping it where it is, what's keeping it from moving to some other way of being, and what is your position, my position, as a researcher or as someone who's acting on a situation. What power do you have? The idea that a researcher can stand back and view something without having any effect on it is long gone, really. You bring power to the situation. Not only should you be aware of it, but you should make sure that you're actually using it in the best way possible. When you enter a situation, the fact that you have a college education, the fact that you have the level of wealth that you do, etc., all of those things are going to have an impact. The knowledge that you have, the way that you think about things, every bit of that changes the power dynamic of a given situation that you walk into, and it's very important to keep track of that. And then the impact. The extent to which the researcher or actor assesses the inherent and potential ecological impact of the research or intervention process and results. So you have to look at all of these different levels and what kind of impact the work has. If all you do is present your findings at a conference and then publish an article, that's still an impact. Of course, there's so much potential impact as well that could come from good research. So when doing work, you don't just want to understand what's going on in a situation. You don't just want to understand the lives of people. You want to be able to help them too. You want to think through your research in such a way that you are very intentional about what the results will be, how they can be used. Are you creating a tool that people will want to pick up and use, or are you creating a document that will be left behind that maybe someone will read and maybe someone will use later on? So back to the levels. So the demo system is the individual level. This is intrapsychic phenomena such as motivations, emotions, individual behavior, what you normally think of when you think of psychology. This also includes lower level systems, neural processes, cognition, and apparently I'm getting cut off here, so I'll reset that. Bing, magically. It all appears. Neural processes and genetics. So when you think about something like homelessness, if you think about the causes of homelessness, a lot of people place the causes at this individual level. They say, oh, well, you know, it's mental illness or decisions that are made, individual behaviors, or maybe it's even genetic. It could be that people have, you know, a brain that works in a different way. Whatever it is, those factors have to be taken into account. And yes, that has some impact. People do make different choices. People do have mental illnesses or temporary bouts of depression or whatever, bad decisions that are made, and those things have an impact. So that's something to think about. There's also individual people that can bring a lot of power to any given situation. You have to think about your own motivations. Why are you getting involved in, say, an issue of homelessness? Why have I done research on homelessness? What power did I bring to the situation? Just by walking in to an organization, I'm viewed in a different way than a community organizer would be. And I have different power in the situation, and there is power that I don't have in the situation, and I have to be aware of those things. And then as far as the impact, there's an impact on individual people. You can think of the individual faces of people that can be helped or are not helped by interventions that happen. Moving up, there's the microsystem. The microsystem you can think of as dyads or small groups, so you know, two people outside the individual. This is the interpersonal level. You can think of organizational teams, family systems, and immediate environments. Oops. Oh no. Why is it evil? Okay, so at this level, when you're thinking about an issue like homelessness, there's all kinds of things that can happen. So if you think about you know, organizational teams, like say, you know, someone is at work and on their kind of work team, they're having issues, and they end up bringing that home, and that affects their family system, or the family system affects the other. You know, there are these kind of links between them, of course, but first you can just focus on some of these and see that within your immediate environment there can be effects that can lead to someone being homeless or can have an impact on homelessness in general. So the work of an organizational team, or the fact that someone maybe loses their job, and then you know that will end up connecting to further down the road. And I'm going to have to kind of speed this up in order to get to these, so I can't do input, process, and outcomes or impact for all of them, but you can kind of think through it and get the idea. The mesosystem is multiple linked microsystems. So when I was talking about you know, work team and family system at home, this is where you see those linked together. And you see that when someone loses their job, obviously that can have an impact that will have an impact on their home life, and so on. And all those are linked together. An ego network just is it's a jargony term, but it represents everybody who's connected to you. So, or to an individual, everybody you know, that would be your ego network. So obviously there are other people who have an impact on your life, but this is just talking about the people that you actually kind of know in a face-to-face sort of way. Within that, you have these linked systems that are having impacts on each other. And if someone loses their job and they're no longer able to provide for their family, that can plunge an entire family into homelessness. Or one person can end up out on the streets because they were having a hard time at work, and they ended up bringing that home, and it created family strife. Or sometimes, you know, when people lose their job, it pushes them past a threshold, and you have people who end up becoming violent at home, and you know, because of someone's violence, other people have to find safety and end up having to flee their home and end up homeless because of that. It's very complicated, but there's all kinds of effects that can happen at this level. So moving up the chain, there is the exosystem, which is what we sometimes think of as the community, traditionally speaking. This is all major interactions for a definable group and or geographic locale. So the exosystem, exo just being outside, means it's outside of that ego network, so it's people outside of those that you know. So this could be the people who maybe own shops that you go to, but you never meet them, or maybe friends of friends that you've never met, or maybe people in an organization that you work for, or a corporation that you work for, that you never meet and you never really interact with, but they still have a lot of impact on your life, etc. So within the exosystem, you can have all kinds of things going on, like say if you're thinking about a community, like I'm living in Bowling Green right now. Well, in Bowling Green, there's a lot of laws at the community level and policies, or one could say a lack of them when it comes to things like housing, and maybe issues with the transitional housing available for people who are experiencing homelessness. And those things certainly have an effect on an individual's experience of homelessness. They may even become homeless because of people's decisions at the individual level to act politically in their own self-interest economically, and it kind of works up the ladder that way. So you start to see that between the demo system, microsystem, mesosystem, exosystem, there's all these connections. We're naming them, and we're drawing these lines between them, but just realize that those are kind of permeable layers between them. So this includes, I already said that. Anyway, moving on. So moving up the chain, we have the macro system. This is society as we generally think of it. This is the cultural context, political context, etc., that contextualizes the lives of people in a somewhat coherent sense. So you can think of it like nations, empires, language groups, religions, Western civilization. There's some layering that goes on there, but the macro system used to be in Yuri Bronfenbrenner's version. That was the kind of highest level. If we think about homelessness at the macro system level, we can see that there are all kinds of federal laws that have an impact on communities, that have an impact on individual people and families. You can see that there's a lot of power relationships going on right now at different levels of society, and the way people view homelessness that have an impact. And then as far as that would have an impact on individuals or families. And then you also, when you see impact, maybe the actions that people take on the homelessness policy or whatever can have an impact at the macro system level with like federal policies or intergovernmental panels and that sort of thing. When you see people who are being forced to migrate from nation to nation because of disasters or whatever, those people being pushed into homelessness are there partially because of maybe a natural disaster and partially because of mismanagements of funds or who knows what. All of these levels are interacting together to create that problem. And then the next level up is the geosystem, and this I added on, which really is the inhabited globe. So you have global processes like the global economy, globalization, environmental issues, global climate change. All of these things are having a great impact on something that we have often thought of as being an individual problem of homelessness, international politics as well. Now you can also think about the permeability of this, that the geosystem includes the natural environment, which sometimes can be just the harshness of more heat because of global climate change on an individual. So all of these things are kind of fluid in the way that they can be viewed. Measuring ecologically is another issue, and I think we're going to have to stop and do a video number 3 on this one. But measuring is just as important as thinking about it, or even more so, because it allows us to have evidence that can help us to improve the work that we do. So we will get back to measurement in our next video.